If you know where to look along Chicago's lakefront, you can find a mermaid. Once you've done that, if you are really patient, persistent, and have a keen eye, you can find treasures from Chicago's past that wash up along the shoreline. Today, we're talking about the Secret Mermaid of the Lakeshore, and later we'll be talking to Christine Solorio, an urban beachcomber based right here in Chicago. I'm Tommy Henry, and this is the Chicago History Podcast. Back in 1986, a group of Chicago artists collaborated on a guerrilla art project that more than 36 years later continues to amaze those who know where to find it. How did this all come about? Well, writer Paul Dehling at 1001 Chicago Afternoons interviewed sculptor Roman Villarreal in 2014 to get the whole scoop. In 1986, Villarreal was showing his works at an art show in Hyde Park here in Chicago with artist Jose Moreno, who's in town from Mexico. The two discussed collaborating on a piece that Villarreal had in mind and enlisted the help of fellow artists Fred Arroyo and Edfu Kinjinga. Villarreal's vision was of a sculpture of a mermaid by the lake. According to Villarreal in 1001 Chicago Afternoons, quote, "A mermaid is not political, not social. Nobody can get mad at us for making a mermaid." Villarreal and Moreno were joined by artists Fred Arroyo and Edfu Kinjinga, soon finding a spot in Burnham Park, just north of 39th Street along the lake. They plan to use one of the large breakwater limestone rocks used as revetments to keep the shore from washing away and transform it into art. Villarreal later told Chicago Sun-Times writer Nancy Moffett, quote, "We said this would be a beautiful place to do a series of sculptures for the next 10 years. Roman Villarreal's 15-year-old daughter, Melinda Garcia Villarreal, was convinced to model as the mermaid, and the four artists got to work. Over the course of roughly 9 or 10 days, the artists arrived early and worked until the sculpture was completed. Quote, "Broad daylight right in front of everybody," Villarreal shared with Paul Dehling, "because something about Chicago, nobody asked too many questions. We were into our 5th, 6th day that a police lady, for the first time, she was having her lunch, a coffee, spotted us, and she walks over and goes, 'What are you guys doing?' But by that time, most of the mermaid was already out, and she goes, 'Oh, that's beautiful. Who commissioned you?' And we're going, 'Oh, well, this is kind of like a project on our part that we just want to kind of help beautify the lakefront, and we're kind of, you know,' and she left us alone. She congratulated us. After a while, another police officer came up, and another one, but nobody ever really said too much to us. The result was a 7-foot-long mermaid, lying on her side with flowing hair and carvings of waves on the side of the rock. They called it Sirena, Spanish for mermaid. Villarreal told writer Nancy Moffett they made up the myth about the mermaid. According to Villarreal, quote, "We wanted people to think that she snuck in from the sea, lay down and went to sleep and became petrified." According to Villarreal, when the water came up and hit the mermaid, it would cover her. And then when the water went back out, the mermaid came back up. The group talked about getting together every year or two to do a new piece, but as it often happens, life got in the way. The artists drifted apart, and La Sirena ended up the group's only completed artwork along the lakefront. Those who lived in the area or walked the beach knew about the mermaid, but for the most part, it remained largely a secret. 14 years later, Chicago Sun-Times writer Nancy Moffett detailed a planned 8-year, $325 million revetment restoration by the Army Corps of Engineers in her December 6, 2000 article. The discovery and the origin of the mermaid on the rock was a mystery at the time. The Chicago Park District had no idea where this mermaid sculpture came from, and a search of the city's public art records turned up nothing. Was it landfill from a demolished mansion? Was it the work, as writer Nancy Moffett wondered, of a forlorn lover with a chisel? No matter where it came from, the planned construction work by the Army Corps of Engineers would require La Sirena to be moved. After seeing the picture of the mermaid in the paper, mermaid model and daughter of the sculptor, Melinda Garcia Villarreal, called the paper to reveal its origin. 2 days later, Nancy Moffett printed the follow-up to her origin story, with all the details of the Secret Mermaid. While there was initially talk of building the mermaid into the new revetment wall, someone must have thought better of that. Instead, in 2004, La Sirena was moved to a Park District storage facility. In 2007, a group of students worked with the artist to restore the mermaid. Once restored, it spent time at Bessemer Park at 89th Street and Muskegon in South Chicago. It's actually where sculptor Roman Villarreal's home community is. One more move was in store for the not so secret anymore mermaid, this time in 2010 to Daniel Burnham Park at Oakwood Beach, just south of 41st Street, where it remains today. Strangely, the piece currently rests tipped on its side, too heavy to be the work of vandals. I can only assume when workers placed it there, they didn't know how it should lie, or maybe it was left that way to better protect La Sirena from the elements so that visitors can enjoy her for another 36 years and beyond. Now then, let's talk beachcombing. My guest today is Christine Solorio, who is one of Chicago's urban beachcombers. What is an urban beachcomber? Well, you're about to find out. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Tommy. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, your connection to Chicago, all that fun stuff.
Well, I was born in Chicago on the North Side. I spent my early childhood in the city. Moved out to the suburbs for a good 20 years, raised my daughter. I always worked downtown, and it was always my dream to live downtown in the city. When I was a little girl, I watched that show, That Girl, kind of revealing my age, but it was just always my dream to live in the city and be kind of a city gal. And when my daughter went off to college, I made the move downtown, and I've been down here now for about 15 years, and I guess my dream came true.
So the reason we're here today, of course, is I found you on social media. You are an urban beachcomber, and quite frankly, I was unaware of what that was all about. But we traded a couple messages, and I thought this is pretty fascinating. So tell us what urban beachcombing is and how you got into it.
Well, urban beachcombing, I call myself an urban beachcomber just because I live in a major city. Beachcombing is a hobby. There's beachcombers all over the world, on oceans, lakes, like myself, the Great Lakes, big towns, small towns. But in the UK, Seaham is really just an spectacular bucket list place that I would love to go someday. So it is a worldwide hobby. But I refer to myself as an urban beachcomber just because I live in a major urban area. So that's just kind of, how I describe my hobby. But I basically scour the shorelines of Lake Michigan for historical treasures, and I find quite a bit of interesting things.
How, I gotta know, how did you get into this? Boy, how long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been doing it for about 12 years. I started doing it. I traveled down to Mexico to a little island called Isla Mujeres quite a bit. And it's a thing that a lot of visitors do there. And I just kind of casually would beachcomb on my vacations and always looked forward to it. Found some really, amazing, beach glass and other things. And I was at dinner one night and I talking to a friend about beachcombing that day, and there was someone sitting next to me from Chicago. They happened to overhear that I was from Chicago, and they said, there's good beachcombing on Lake Michigan. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I live right downtown, and I ride my bike on the lakefront all the time. I've never really noticed. And when I got home from that trip, I couldn't wait to get out there and just started looking around, and it was there. It was just there all the time. So that's really when I started to become a lot more serious about the hobby and almost obsessed.
Now, how long did it take until you found something that you thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I can't wait to get this home and clean it up, or I don't know what you do with these things.
I would say, once I started going out, in Chicago, which by the way, I find what ended up finding way more better things here in Chicago than Mexico. So it just kind of motivated me to keep looking. I started doing a lot of research. I started learning more about beachcombing. I started following really good beachcombers from around the world and learned and read books and realized that there's the potential, because of the history of Chicago and all of the historical events that were really focused on the lakefront, that I had a really good chance. So I would say, about 5 or 6 years into it, I found my first marble. And that's kind of like the holy grail. And, you know, I kind of became obsessed with finding the marbles. They're the vintage game marbles, like from, the 1920s, 30s, that the kids played with. That was the what they did back then. And I just kept finding them, and I became obsessed. And on my quest to find more marbles, I found like a boatload of other really cool historical um, things. So it's just kind of grown, and there's hardly a week that doesn't go by that I don't find something that I can research and find a really cool story.
It sounds like after all these years, you've gotten pretty good at spotting stuff, which is amazing. I have the patience for maybe 4 or 5 minutes when I'm looking for my car keys before I give up. So the fact that it took you 5 years to find something worthwhile is pretty impressive. So, and you post a lot of pictures of marbles. I had no idea what the deal with marbles was. I didn't know if, I can't
Yeah,
imagine kids can play marbles on the beach because,
yes. There's people in this hobby that have been beachcombing, and they say, for 20, 30 years that have never found one. I personally, I've become quite good at spotting them. And, I'm really lucky because Chicago just has so much history. Particularly the 1933 World's Fair. I mean, there was a, amusement park that was dedicated for children. The parents just dropped their kids off there for the whole day. And there were exhibits with, from marble companies, and the kids, it cost 10 cents for like, a bag of marbles. And, they they just played with them right there on the lakefront. So you do have to have that history. You're not going to find marbles like down in, Florida. The conditions aren't right. But because the entire Chicago lakefront was built on landfill, as you know, and you've talked about that in your other episodes, and I'm sure your listeners know that. You know, they are found in the garbage too, and then they just kind of erode out into the lake. So in my quest to find marbles, my obsession, I call myself a marble hunter. I'm kind of known in the beachcombing world for finding them. I have found a lot of really other great stuff. So
Marble Hunter, by the way, the worst superhero ever. Yeah, that's all they do, hunt marbles. What other items have you found out and about? I, of course, know the answer to this, but for people just listening who don't already follow you obsessively on social media like I do, what else have you found?
Well, I have found, just for example, we were talking about the World's Fair. This bottle here that I'm showing is a sample liquor bottle, and it's made by Hiram Walker, which made the Canadian Club whiskey. And they actually had an exhibit at the 1933 World's Fair. And not only did they have an exhibit in the fair, they had a bottling line at 16th Street, which really is just down the street from me. And these were the sample bottles from the fair.
So for people who are just listening and not watching the YouTube version of this, it's kind of an amber colored bottle, maybe 4 ounces, I'd
I,
say, but it's
yeah,
in amazing shape. I cannot believe
I
how
have three of
perfect it is.
these.
What's that?
I have three of these.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And you found all of them kind of in the same area?
uh, pretty much
Wow.
within a 5 mile radius.
Tell me about the pipe that you found the other day.
Oh yeah, this is probably one of my oldest finds. This here is a clay pipe. It's broken up, I mean, but it's just based on the style of pipe, mostly this little piece here. I was able to date it back to like the mid 1600s.
It is pretty amazing. Again, for those
It
of you listening, it's
worked.
maybe 2.5 inches long,
Yeah.
and it's a very basic pipe. I'll have pictures of it up on the social media pages for the Chicago History Podcast. Um, but again, amazing. I know you found medicine bottles and a variety of items. It seems rare that a week goes by that you haven't found something that you're showing off,
I'm
which
so
is
lucky. I'm very lucky in my beach coming. I work very hard and I'm very persistent, but there is some luck involved.
Well, let me ask you, so how many days a week and at what time are you doing this? And are there
Well,
weather factors that you need to take into account?
yes. Well, on average, I get out, I would say 4 to 5 days a week, all year round. Winter and fall are my best hunting seasons just because the lake and the currents and the waves are just really, whipping up and bringing stuff in from out in the lake. I in the summer, in the height of the summer, when the sun's coming up, at a little after 5 a.m., I'm on the beach at 4:45 a.m.
Wait, there's a 4:45 a.m.?
Yes.
Oh boy.
So
Wow.
I have a job, so I mean I have to adapt to
Yeah, you got to get
making
that out of the way
time.
before you can
Right.
get the money, pay the bills.
Yeah, so I try to go out early. I'm just naturally early riser. So I'm usually out on the beach, in the summer by 5 a.m. And on the weekends, I will put in a good 4, 5, or 6 hours of hunting. And sometimes, and I ride my bike. I don't own a car. I'm a real city gal. And I bike the lakefront. And some days I log 20 miles on the bike.
Wow. It's a good way to stay fit and find marbles.
Yes.
Now, do you bump into other beach combers while you're out and about? Do you like recognize people from passing, or are you kind of a solitary gal?
Summer. I usually hunt alone. I just like it. I really am very like laser focused on the ground and in the water. I mean, I just really cannot be distracted. So I do like to hunt with friends from time to time, but you end up usually talking and carrying on, and then you're missing stuff. So I do like to hunt alone, and in the summer tends to bring out other beachcombers, especially at the public beaches. I go to some off the grid spots where there's nobody that goes there, as far as I know. Not when I go anyway. I never see anyone there, but I do see fellow beachcombers in the summer. There's some etiquettes and rules, I guess you could say, just common courtesies. You just don't want to like back up to people and when they're searching a spot. So, but in general, it's a very friendly hobby, but it can get competitive.
I told someone that I was going to be talking to you, the urban beachcomber, and the question was, "Oh, are they out there with a metal detector?" And I thought, "Oh, I'm sure there are people that do that, right? That you see along the beach with, they're looking for dropped, items of recent worth. I'm guessing, or coins or whatever. But you're not using a metal detector. You're using your own tools, though, right?"
Yes. I mean, I have like a hoe that I carry with me. I also use as a walking stick to help me on the ice in the wintertime, chip out ice, finds that I might find that are frozen into the ground. I have like a strainer scoop. When the water is very calm, I go in the water so I can spot things and scoop them out. The boots and footwear is very, very important. You can't go out in flip flops. You got to have really good sturdy shoes, warm shoes, boots in the wintertime, lots of layers, good gloves. So there's a lot that goes into it. I spend a lot of time and money to have good gear because it helps me stay out longer.
That's good. You gotta spend a bunch up front so you don't have to keep buying the same, not so great gear every couple months, right?
Right. But
Yeah.
every uh, the question that I get asked a lot is like, why are you finding all of these things? And I mean, and in a word, it is history. It is history.
Well, it's fortunate that you live so close to, again, the landfills where the World's Fair was, all of the stuff that was dumped along the shore to create Grant Park and beyond.
There was
That's
no
pretty amazing.
EPA back then.
Boy, howdy, there was not. It's pretty crazy when I explain to people what used to go on where like the Art Institute was. Oh boy.
Yeah,
How can people see what you do? They can follow you on social media. How can they follow you?
yeah. I have an Instagram account, Shy City Beach Gal. I post most of my finds on there, and some of my city life. I really love Chicago. I'm really like humbled sometimes when I'm walking along the shoreline and I'm just walking on all this history and to just find these items that were belong to somebody, are just really it just really kind of blows my mind sometimes.
Well, and certainly when it's Hiram Walker bottles from almost 90 years ago from the World's Fair in 1933/34, that's pretty amazing. And the fact that it's basically just been sitting there for 90 years. It's
I know. And a lot of the stuff I find is in really good condition. Surprisingly, if you saw that lid that I found over the weekend that I posted from the J. Parker Prey, who him and his wife Mary Cobb, after there was so much writing on I'll pull the lid up, this little milk glass lid here, and you can't really see it, but there's quite a bit of writing on there, which is like you're going to be able to find out the story behind this, and that's really exciting. But I mean, it says established 1886 in here, and
yeah,
turns
yeah.
out that him and his wife brought manicures to the United States. His wife was trained in France in French manicure and brought that technique here, and they invented the emery board.
Now, when you bring this stuff home, do you make a list of where you found it, or do you just kind of pile it up and remember?
I just kind of pile it up and display it.
Yeah, that's probably what I
I
do
wish
too. I don't know
I
if I'd be really good about writing down like, oh, I found this at 14th Street or, on Northerly Island, something like that.
mm,
So that's very cool.
I
Well,
probably should have done that.
oh, well, never too late to start after 12 years of doing this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Christine Solorio, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I encourage everybody listening to follow you. Shy City Beach Gal on Instagram. It is a great follow. And I learn a lot every time you post something because every time you hold something up to the camera, I go, oh, now I got to find out all about this. So it's nice when you do the research for me, though. That's much better.
Well, I'm really thanks for having me, and I'm glad to have you as a follower. And I've been really enjoying your podcast.
Well, now I'm blushing, but thank you so much. And I got to tell you, as you discover more and more stuff, maybe we can have you back on.
I'd love that.
Wonderful. Christine, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.